Hey, my name's Elijah Thompson. I'm 26 years old, a black guy scraping by in Atlanta. Life's been a grind for as long as I can remember. I worked the night shift at a downtown parking garage, standing on my feet for hours, dealing with drunk drivers, late night wanderers, and the occasional sketchy character who thinks the lot's a good place to hide out. By the time my shift ends around 6:30 a.m., my back's screaming, my eyes are burning from lack of sleep, and all I want is to crash in my beat-up apartment. It's a small, run-down place on the edge of the city, the kind with peeling paint on the walls and a leaky faucet that I've been meaning to fix for months. I share it with my mom, who's been battling diabetes and a bad heart for years, and my nephew Jordan, who's 8 and full of energy despite everything. He's my sister's kid. She took off a couple years back, leaving him with us. I don't blame her, life's hard, but it means I'm the one pulling double duty, provider by night, makeshift dad by day. That morning was no different. Or at least, it started that way. The sky was still a hazy gray, fog clinging to the streets like it didn't want to let go of the night. I dragged myself up the cracked concrete steps to our building, my work boots heavy, my uniform smelling like exhaust and cheap coffee from the break room vending machine. My shoulders ached from hunching over the booth all night, checking tickets and waving cars through. All I could think about was peeling off my clothes, grabbing a quick shower if the hot water was working, and collapsing onto my thin mattress before Jordan woke up and started asking for breakfast. Mom would be stirring soon too, needing her meds and a hand with getting around. It was the routine. Work, sleep, repeat. Dreams? Those were for other people. I fumbled with my keys at the door, the metal cold against my fingers. The hallway light buzzed faintly overhead, casting shadows that made the place feel even smaller. When I finally pushed the door open, something hit me right away. A smell. Not the usual stale air mixed with last night's takeout, but something warm, rich, and out of place. Fresh coffee, brewing right there in my apartment. My heart skipped. We didn't have coffee like that. Mom couldn't stand the caffeine with her meds, and I sure as hell hadn't set up the old pot before leaving for work. Jordan? No way an 8-year-old was messing with hot water at this hour. The apartment should have been dead quiet, empty except for their sleeping breaths. I froze in the doorway, my pulse picking up. Was someone inside? A break-in? But who breaks in to make coffee? I listened hard, nothing but the soft hum of the fridge and a faint clink from the kitchen. No voices, no footsteps. Slowly, I stepped inside, closing the door behind me with a quiet click. My eyes darted around the dim living room, the worn couch with Jordan's blanket tossed over it, Mom's walker by the hall, my sneakers kicked off near the entry. Everything looked normal, but that smell, it was pulling me toward the kitchen like a hook. My mind raced. Maybe Mom had a bad night and got up early, but she couldn't reach the high shelf where we kept the coffee grounds. And Jordan? He'd burned the place down trying. Heart pounding now, I crept forward, my boots silent on the thin carpet. The kitchen light was on, a soft, yellow glow spilling into the hall. I could hear a spoon stirring against ceramic, rhythmic and calm. Too calm. I rounded the corner, and that's when the world slammed to a halt. There she was, a woman standing at my counter, her back to me. She had light skin, hair falling softly past her shoulders in loose waves, and she was wearing my white shirt, my dress shirt, the one I kept for interviews or church, hanging loose on her frame but buttoned just enough. She stirred the coffee like she owned the place, like this was her morning ritual, not mine. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. What the hell? My mouth went dry, and before I could think, the words burst out louder than I meant. You're wearing my shirt? She didn't jump, didn't drop the mug or spin around in panic. Instead, she turned slowly, deliberately, her eyes meeting mine without a flicker of surprise. There was something in that gaze, deep, steady, carrying the weight of stories I couldn't begin to guess. She was beautiful in a way that hit you quietly, like a memory you didn't know you had. Not young, not flashy, but with lines around her eyes that spoke of experience, of pain held back but not broken by it. Her lips curved into a small smile, and she set the mug down on the counter with a soft clink. "Good morning," she said, her voice smooth, unruffled. "I owe you a cup of coffee." Owe me? My brain scrambled to catch up. Who was she? How did she get in here? And why the hell was she in my shirt, acting like this was normal? I stood there, frozen, my bag still slung over my shoulder, feeling like I'd walked into someone else's life. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. The chipped counters, the stack of bills by the fridge, Jordan's drawings taped to the wall. This woman didn't belong here. She looked like she stepped out of a different world, one with clean lines and purpose, not this mess of survival. I finally found my voice, though it came out shaky. Who? Who are you? How did you get in here? She didn't flinch at my tone. Instead, she extended a hand, calm as if we were meeting at a coffee shop downtown. I'm Sophia, Sophia Reyes. Her name didn't ring a bell, not at first, but as I stared at her outstretched hand, fragments from the night before started crashing back. The rain, the cold, the woman stumbling toward the garage. It hit me like a punch. Her. It was her. Last night had been brutal, pouring rain turning the streets into rivers, wind whipping through the open garage like it was trying to tear the place down. I'd been wrapping up my shift, locking the gates, when I spotted her from the corner of my eye. She was coming from the dark end of the block, her steps unsteady, one heel broken, coat slipping off her shoulder. Her face was streaked with rain, or tears, I couldn't tell. She looked lost, desperate, like she'd been running from something big. I called out, "Hey, you okay?" She stopped, looked at me with eyes that held a storm, and said she didn't want to go home, didn't want to see anyone she knew, just needed a quiet place for the night. I should have walked away, told her to call a cab or find a shelter, but something in her voice, the raw edge of it, stopped me. I'd seen that look before on my mom after a bad doctor's visit, on Jordan when he had nightmares about his mom leaving. I couldn't just leave her out there in the cold. So I brought her back here, gave her the couch, a clean blanket, and my shirt when she asked for something dry. I didn't touch her, didn't ask questions, just said, "If you need quiet, sleep here." Then I went to my room, locked the door, and tried to forget about it. And now, here she was, in my kitchen, wearing that shirt, making coffee like nothing happened. My mind reeled. What if Mom woke up? What if Jordan saw her? Panic mixed with something else, a pull, a curiosity that made my chest tight. She was older than me, that much was clear, maybe mid-40s, with a grace that came from living through things I hadn't yet. But there was no weakness in her, just quiet strength. I didn't take her hand right away. Instead, I dropped my bag on the floor, my voice low but edged with confusion. "What are you doing here? I mean, still here?" Sophia's smile faded a bit, but her eyes stayed steady. "You helped me last night. I didn't want to leave without saying thank you." She glanced at the mug. "And this is the least I could do." "Thank you? For what? A lumpy couch and a borrowed shirt?" I rubbed my face, exhaustion crashing with the adrenaline. This wasn't how my mornings went. Mornings were for quiet, for checking on Mom, for grabbing a few hours of sleep before the world demanded more. Not this. Not a stranger turning my space upside down. But as I looked at her, really looked, I felt something shift. Her presence wasn't just intrusive, it was magnetic. Like she carried a story that demanded to be heard. And in that moment, with the fog lifting outside the window and the coffee steaming between us, I knew this wasn't just a random encounter. This morning wasn't ordinary anymore. It was the start of something that would pull me out of my grind, force me to face dreams I'd buried, and maybe, just maybe, change everything. I started piecing it together, standing there in my kitchen, with the morning light filtering through the cracked blinds. The coffee smell hung heavy, mixing with the faint mustiness of our old apartment. Sophia Reyes, stood across from me, her hand still extended like this was some normal introduction. But nothing about this felt normal. My mind flashed back to last night, the rain-slicked streets, the way the garage lights buzzed overhead as I wrapped up my shift. It had been one of those endless nights. Cars coming and going, the occasional horn blaring, me huddled in my booth with a thermos of weak tea to stay awake. Around 2 a.m., the downpour started, turning the asphalt into a shiny black mirror. I was locking the gates, my jacket soaked through, when I saw her. She emerged from the shadows at the end of the block, her silhouette cutting through the rain like a ghost. Her steps were uneven, one heel snapped, making her limp slightly. Her coat hung off one shoulder, water streaming down her face and her eyes. They were wide, haunted, like she'd just escaped something that clawed at her soul. I hesitated at first. Part of me wanted to mind my own business. Atlanta's streets weren't kind to strangers, and I'd learned the hard way not to get involved. But she stopped under the garage overhang, shivering, her breath coming in ragged bursts. "Hey," I called out, my voice echoing off the concrete. "You all right?" She looked up, and in that moment, I saw it. Not just the rain on her cheeks, but tears mixing in. I I can't go home," she said, her voice barely above the patter of drops. "Not tonight. I just need somewhere quiet. Please." There was no pleading in her tone, just exhaustion, like she'd been carrying a weight too heavy for too long. I scanned the empty lot, the wind whipping rain against my face. Shelters were full this time of year, and cabs wouldn't stop for someone looking like that. I thought of Mom at home, her meds running low, Jordan probably kicking off his blankets in his sleep. But leaving her out here? In the cold, alone? That wasn't who I was. I'd helped folks before, given a ride to a stranded driver, shared my lunch with a homeless guy near the lot. This felt the same, just bigger. "All right," I said finally, nodding toward my beat-up Honda parked nearby. "I got a couch. It's not much, but it's dry." She didn't argue, didn't ask questions, just followed me to the car, her broken heel clicking unevenly on the pavement. The drive back was silent, the wipers swishing back and forth like a metronome. I kept my eyes on the road, not wanting to pry. She stared out the window, her hands clasped tight in her lap. When we got to the apartment, I led her up the stairs, unlocking the door as quietly as I could. Mom and Jordan were asleep, thank God. I grabbed a clean blanket from the closet, tossed it on the couch with a pillow. "Bathroom's down the hall," I whispered. "If you need anything, just knock." She paused, looking at me with those deep eyes. "Why are you doing this?" I shrugged. "Because the world's rough enough without leaving people in the rain." She nodded, then asked softly for something dry to change into. I handed her my white shirt, the only clean one hanging in the closet. No questions. I went to my room, locked the door, and lay there staring at the ceiling cracks, wondering if I'd just made a huge mistake. Now, back in the kitchen, with the sun creeping higher, those memories flooded me. Sophia pulled her hand back when I didn't shake it, but she didn't seem offended. Instead, she picked up the mug and held it out to me. "Black, no sugar," she said. "Figured that's how you take it." How did she know? I took the cup, the warmth seeping into my cold fingers. "Yeah, thanks." I sipped, the bitterness grounding me a bit. Jordan could wake any minute, bounding in for cereal. Mom might call out for her pills, and here was this woman, this stranger who'd crashed into my night, standing in my space like she fit. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms over my shirt. Her shirt now, I guess. "You didn't have to help me last night," she said. "Most people would have walked away." I set the mug down, rubbing the back of my neck. "Yeah, well, I've been there. Rain's no joke." She tilted her head, studying me. Her eyes lingered on the stack of bills by the fridge, the kids' drawings on the wall, Jordan's stick-figure family minus a mom. Then her gaze shifted to the old sketchbook on the table, the one I hadn't touched in months. It was dog-eared, filled with pencil drawings from back when I thought I could make something of myself. Houses, community centers, gardens for folks like us, immigrants, single parents, people scraping by. Dreams from my brief stint in community college, studying architecture before life derailed it all. "You draw?" she asked, her voice soft but curious. She reached for the book, hesitating until I nodded. Flipping through, her fingers traced the lines gently. "These are good. Really good. They have soul." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Yeah, back when I had time for dreams. Now it's just night shifts and bills. Dreams don't pay the rent." She closed the book, her expression unreadable. But there was no pity there, just understanding, like she'd heard that story before. Maybe lived it. She set the book down and pulled a card from her coat pocket, sliding it across the counter. "I think you fit," she said cryptically. "Sometimes fate knocks twice." I glanced at the card, but before I could read it, she straightened up. "Thank you, Elijah, for the quiet." She headed for the door, her steps steady now, no limp. I wanted to ask more, who she was running from, why she picked my garage, but the words stuck. As the door clicked shut behind her, I stood there, card in hand, the apartment silent again except for the drip of the faucet. The coffee cooled on the counter and I flipped the card over. Sophia Reyes, Executive Director, Reyes Architecture. My stomach dropped. She wasn't just anyone. She was someone who'd built an empire from nothing, featured in magazines, rebuilding forgotten communities. And she'd just walked out of my kitchen, leaving me with a door cracked open to a world I'd long given up on. I picked up the card after she left, my fingers still warm from the coffee mug. Sophia Reyes, Executive Director, Reyes Architecture. The name hit me like a brick. I'd heard of her, seen her face in those glossy magazines at the doctor's office while waiting with Mom. She was big time. One of the most powerful female architects in the country, featured on covers for her work rebuilding neglected neighborhoods, turning old warehouses into community hubs for folks who got left behind. She'd been honored at awards shows, quoted in articles about breaking barriers as a Latina in a male-dominated field. And now? She'd slept on my couch, worn my shirt, and made me coffee like it was nothing. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, the card staring back at me. How? Why? Last night she'd looked like any other person down on their luck, broken heel, soaked clothes, eyes full of whatever storm she'd fled. But this? This was someone who'd climbed mountains I could only dream of. And those dreams... I glanced at the sketchbook she'd touched. It had been gathering dust for years, ever since I dropped out of community college. Back then, I'd been full of fire, studying architecture on a shoestring scholarship, sketching plans for affordable homes, green spaces in urban deserts, centers where single moms like my sister could get a break. But life happened. Mom's health tanked, bills piled up, Jordan showed up on our doorstep, dreams got shelved for survival. Night shifts at the garage paid steady, even if they drained me dry. I flipped open the book, my pencil marks faded but still there. A small house with a vegetable garden for low-income families. A community center with rooms for kids' homework and mom's support groups. Soul, she'd called it. For the first time in forever, I picked up a pencil. The lead scratched against the paper, rough at first, then smoother. I sketched Jordan's face, his gap-toothed grin, the way his eyes lit up when I brought home cheap ice cream after a long shift. It wasn't much, but it felt like breathing after holding my breath too long. A few days later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered warily. Bill collectors loved early calls. Elijah, this is Sophia Reyes. Her voice was crisp, professional, like the woman on those magazine covers. She didn't waste time. I arranged an interview for you at my firm. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring your sketches. I stammered something about not having a degree, about my job, but she cut in gently. No favors, just a door. Walk through it if you want. Click. She hung up before I could argue. The next morning, I dug out my one good shirt, the one she'd worn, ironed it best I could, and headed downtown. Reyes Architecture was in a sleek building, all glass and steel, the kind of place that screamed success. The lobby alone was bigger than my apartment, with abstract art on the walls and people in sharp suits hustling by. I felt like an imposter, my boots scuffed against the polished floor. The receptionist eyed my resume, thin as it was, and led me to a conference room. There, behind a long table, sat Marcus Hale, the head of design, flanked by a couple of assistants. He was older, white-haired, with a tie that probably cost more than my rent. I laid out my sketches, my hands steady despite the nerves. Marcus flipped through them, his face neutral at first, then twisting into a smirk. "Pencil drawings?" he said, holding one up like it was a relic. "You think we build with dreams here, kid?" The room chuckled lightly, the assistants exchanging glances. "These are quaint. But we're talking real projects, budgets, software, deadlines. Not backyard doodles." The words stung, sharp as a slap. I mumbled something about practical designs for real people, but he waved it off. "Appreciate the passion, but passion doesn't pay invoices. Thanks for coming in." I gathered my book, head down, the laughter echoing in my ears as I left. Outside, the Atlanta sun beat down, but I felt cold. On the bus ride home, I stared at the sketches, the pencil lines blurring in my vision. Why had she set this up? To humiliate me? To prove I didn't belong? Through the office window on the third floor, I'd caught her eye as I exited. Sophia standing there, watching. No wave, no intervention, just that steady gaze like she was waiting for something, waiting to see if I'd crumble. Back home, Jordan was at school, Mom napping. I sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where she'd made coffee. Anger bubbled up. At Marcus, at the world that boxed people like me out. But deeper, it was at myself for daring to hope. I almost tossed the book in the trash. But then I thought of her words. They have soul. If she saw something, maybe it was there. I sharpened my pencil and started over, refining a design for a community space. Stronger lines, more detail, no more doodles. This time, it had to be real. Because if Sophia had thrown me to the wolves, maybe it was to see if I'd fight back. And damn it, I would. That night, I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay on my thin mattress in the dark, the springs creaking under my weight every time I shifted. The apartment was quiet except for the occasional cough from Mom's room down the hall. Harsh, ragged sounds that reminded me why I was grinding through those night shifts. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, each second stretching like it was mocking me. Tick. The smug twist of Marcus Hale's mouth as he held up my sketch. Talk. The light laughter rippling through the conference room. Tick. Sophia's eyes through that third-floor glass, watching, waiting, doing nothing. Why? Why set me up for that humiliation? To prove I was just a parking attendant with delusions? My fists clenched the sheets, knuckles aching. I wanted to punch the wall, scream into the pillow, but Jordan was asleep in the next room. Kid had enough nightmares without me adding to them. I sat up around 3 a.m., the room spinning from exhaustion. The sketchbook sat on my nightstand like a challenge. I grabbed it, flipped to a blank page under the dim lamp. My hand shook at first, the pencil hovering. Then I started drawing Jordan's face. His wide eyes, the way his hair stuck up in the mornings. That innocent grin that made the world feel a little less heavy. I shaded the curves of his cheeks, the shadow under his chin. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Underneath I scribbled in block letters, "Don't give up, no matter how much it hurts." The words stared back, simple but fierce. I thought of Mom's doctor's bills stacking up, Jordan's school supplies I could barely afford. Giving up? That wasn't an option. But Sophia? Her silence stung deepest. If she saw soul in my work, why let them tear it apart? By dawn, my eyes burned, but the anger had cooled into something sharper. Resolve. I showered quick, the water sputtering cold halfway through, then checked on Mom. She was stirring, her face pale against the pillows. "Morning, baby," she rasped, managing a weak smile. I helped her with her pills, made sure Jordan was up for school. "You look tired," she said, patting my hand. "I'm good, Ma," I lied, kissing her forehead. As I grabbed my keys to drop Jordan off, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered on the way down the stairs. "Elijah? Sophia Reyes." Her voice was calm, no trace of last night's fallout. "Meet me at the coffee shop near Peachtree Bridge, 9 a.m. I paused on the landing. Why? But she was already gone, the line dead. The shop was a small spot tucked in a brick building, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh grounds wafting out the door. I got there early, nursing a black coffee at a corner table, my sketchbook tucked under my arm like armor. The bridge loomed outside the window, cars humming over it in the morning rush. What did she want? An apology? To tell me I didn't belong? At 9 sharp, she walked in, no power suit this time, just a beige sweater, jeans, hair pulled back simple. She looked tired too, lines around her eyes deeper in the daylight. She spotted me, ordered a latte, and sat across without preamble. No hello, no small talk. She slid a thick folder across the table. "We need a design for a community center, focus on single parents, safe spaces, resources, the works. I want you to try." She tapped the cover. No degree required, no software, just truth. I stared at the folder, then at her. Laughter bubbled up, sharp and disbelieving. "You kidding? After yesterday? That was your idea of help?" She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned forward, elbows on the table, her eyes locking onto mine. "I don't kid about this." The air between us thickened, the hum of the shop fading. I pushed the folder back an inch. So what, Pity? You saw the poor kid from the garage and thought you'd throw him a bone? Her jaw tightened, but her voice stayed even. I don't pity you, Elijah. She paused, glancing out the window at the bridge, cars blurring by. Then quieter, I see you. The way you looked at those sketches, like they were drowning, but you wouldn't let go. I know that look. I've worn it. The words hung there, pulling me in despite myself. She sighed, stirring her latte slowly. I was like you once. No connections, no fancy school. Just a girl from a rough neighborhood, sketching on napkins because that's all I had. They laughed at me too, called my ideas quaint, said I didn't belong in boardrooms. Her eyes met mine again, raw now, no polish. I traded my 20s for it. Nights alone, doors slammed in my face, wondering if it was worth it. But I kept going, because someone has to build for the people they came from. She pushed the folder back toward me. This project's real. Budget, board approval, all of it. If you nail it, you're in the team. If you quit, she trailed off, but the implication was clear. Door closed forever. My heart raced, a storm building inside. This was the high point. The moment everything flipped. Part of me wanted to shove the folder away, walk out, keep my safe grind. But her story it mirrored mine too closely. The traded years, the doubt. And her eyes. They weren't pitying. They were challenging, believing. I gripped the sketchbook, nails digging in. I work nights. I got Mom, Jordan. I don't have time like your team. She nodded, not arguing. Neither did I, but time's what you make. The shop noise swelled around us, espresso machines hissing, people chatting, but it felt like we were alone. I thought of Jordan's drawing on the fridge, Mom's coughs in the night. Quitting now? That'd prove Marcus right. I took a breath, deep and steady. Fine, I'll do it. The words came out firm, surprising even me. Sophia's face softened, a flicker of relief in her eyes, like she'd been holding her breath too. She didn't smile big, just nodded. Good. Start with truth. As I stood to leave, folder in hand, she caught my arm lightly. Her touch was brief, electric. You're not just the guy from the garage, Elijah, she whispered. You're someone this world can't afford to miss. I stepped out into the Atlanta heat, the bridge traffic roaring. My chest burned, not with anger anymore, but fire. This link with Sophia? It wasn't just chance anymore. It was deeper, a quiet bond forming from shared scars. And as I walked away, I knew this was the start of something real, something we'd build together. I didn't waste time after that meeting. The folder Sophia gave me became my lifeline, tucked under my arm as I hustled back to the apartment. Jordan was at school, Mom dozing in her chair with the TV murmuring low. I spread the papers across the kitchen table, the same spot where she'd stirred that first cup of coffee. Specs for the community center, a building for single parents with play areas, counseling rooms, kitchens for shared meals. No frills, just functional hope. I worked nights at the garage still, waving cars in and out under the fluorescent buzz, but my mind was elsewhere. After shifts, I'd drag home at dawn and brew weak tea to stay awake and sketch under the dim kitchen bulb. The light cast long shadows on the walls, turning the room into my makeshift studio. No fancy software like at Rhea's architecture, just pencil, paper, and whatever grit I had left. I poured everything into it. The designs weren't just lines, they were pieces of us. A bright kitchen with wide counters, easy for moms like mine to navigate on bad days, stocked with affordable staples. An outdoor play area with a sturdy roof, shelter from Atlanta's sudden storms, so kids like Jordan could run without worry. And the quiet room, a small space with soft lighting, comfortable chairs, no windows to the outside world. A place to cry, to breathe, to fall apart without judgment. I'd seen Mom need that after doctor's visits, heard Jordan's muffled sobs when he missed his mom. It wasn't grand architecture, it was survival made beautiful. Weeks blurred into months. I'd email drafts to Sophia late at night, her responses coming quick. Sharp feedback, no sugarcoating. Strengthen the supports here, she'd write. Make it feel like home, not an institution. We met sometimes at that same coffee shop, poring over revisions. No personal talk at first, just work. But her presence pulled at me, that quiet strength. drawing out parts of me I'd buried. One evening, as rain tapped the window like last night we'd met, she looked up from the plans. This quiet room? It's personal, isn't it? I nodded, throat tight. For people like us. She didn't push, just touched the page lightly, her fingers brushing mine for a second. Electric, but gone fast. The build started in spring. I wasn't led. Sophia kept her word, no favors. But I was on the team consulting on site. I'd swing by after shifts, dirt under my nails from the garage mixing with sawdust. Watching the foundation pour, the walls rise. It was like seeing my sketches breathe. Marcus Hale grumbled at meetings, but even he couldn't deny the progress. Kid's got an eye for the real stuff, he muttered once, almost a compliment. The grand opening came on a crisp fall day, the air smelling like fresh paint and possibility. The center stood modest but strong, a brick building with wide doors, green spaces out front. I brought Jordan, his small hand in mine as we walked up. He tugged my sleeve, eyes wide at the playground. Uncle Eli, is this the place you drew in your dreams? I knelt to his level, ruffling his hair. Yeah, buddy. And now it's real. He beamed, darting off to the swings, his laughter echoing like music. Sophia was there, of course, cutting the ribbon in a simple dress, no fanfare. Reporters snapped photos. She was the face of it all, but her eyes found mine in the crowd. After the speeches, as folks toured inside, she pulled me aside, handing over a new folder. Next project, a bigger center north side. I want you leading. I took it, my chest swelling. She wore that white shirt again, my shirt from that first morning, tucked neatly under a jacket. It hit me then. We'd come full circle. We didn't marry. No rings, no vows in a church. Life wasn't a fairy tale. It was shifts and sketches, meds and milestones. But that afternoon, as the crowd thinned, we sat on the front steps, 2 coffees in hand, black for me, latte for her. Jordan played nearby, his sneakers kicking up dirt on the new turf. Wind rustled the leaves, carrying the scent of turned earth. I leaned back, watching him. We didn't inherit any of this, I said quietly, gesturing to the building, to him, to us. Sophia sipped her drink, her shoulder brushing mine. But we're building it together, she replied, her voice warm, steady. And that's enough. We sat there as the sun dipped, no need for more words. Our bond wasn't labeled. Colleagues, friends, something deeper. It didn't need a name. It was in the quiet supports we'd given each other. Her opening doors I'd thought locked, me reminding her that strength didn't mean going alone. She'd shared bits of her past over time, nights of doubt, barriers broken, the loneliness of the top. I'd opened up about mine, the garage grind, dreams deferred, the fear of failing Jordan and Mom. We healed in the spaces between, without fanfare. Evenings now sometimes ended with her at the apartment, helping Jordan with homework while I sketched. Mom adored her. That woman's got fire, she'd say. No big declarations, just presence. And mornings? Sometimes she'd beat me to the coffee pot, that white shirt draped over her like a promise. It was enough to keep going, step by step. In the end, some connections don't need titles. Some loves don't need stamps of approval. Just someone who shows up, brews the coffee, and sees you. Not for what you lack, but for what you build. And with Sophia, that's what we did. Built. Together.